This started with me scribbling like a little kid, throwing paint around and using unconventional tools. These 6 ink and watercolor abstracts all started the same way. No plan, no sketch, just me picking up a pen and letting my hand wander across the page. I was really curious what would happen if I stopped trying to make something good and just played. You know, like when you were a little kid and you'd just doodle and draw without thinking? That kind of energy. For me, this is the perfect kind of activity to do after a long day of work, when I can just let go, be super messy if I want, not have to perform or know what I'm doing whatsoever, and just let go, have fun, and see what happens. So I picked up my pen and just went for it, dipping it in this ink that isn't even waterproof when it's fully dried. I followed the lines wherever they went, and I tried to let the paint do most of the work. It did feel super awkward at first, but also really fun. So that's what you're about to see in this video: scribbling, painting, and a whole lot of letting go. I seriously had so much fun scribbling with this fountain pen. I don't know if I remember ever scribbling like this. Like, I'm sure I must have when I was really little. I just have no recollection of it. What I do remember from being little is trying to draw really well as I could. I wanted to draw as well as my mum could. And I don't know if I ever did this, but I'm going to do more of it in the future too. How long's it been since you picked up a pen and just scribbled like a toddler? If you haven't done it in a while, maybe pick up some paper right now and just do it while you're watching this video and see how it feels. Like, don't even care. Don't even show anyone, and just see if it releases any kind of built up energy or something. It really did for me. So after I finished that minute or so of scribbling, which again was so much fun, I picked a few paint colors that I wanted to play with. And so that I didn't try to be neat about it, you might have seen when I first put that bit of green paint on, I literally just squeezed it from the brush and made that big blob like right near the middle of the sheet of paper. That was a fun way to start, squeezing out the paint and then just flicking paint on, because this whole exercise for me is literally just having fun and not trying to control things. I don't know about you, but I spend so much of my life trying to control things, trying to do things right, trying to meet expectations or exceed expectations all the time, whether it's at home or at work or just being a woman in society. I don't know. So this is fun. I like not trying to make something pretty necessarily and just spend like 15, 20, or even 30 minutes doing something that's just for me to explore and learn something, and honestly not even really care what it turns out like. Now, I mentioned I started this without a plan, and that's true, but I will say those scribbles on the paper really helped give me a little bit of structure almost. And I don't even know if that's the right word, because this is definitely like an unstructured play session. But I don't know if you've noticed as you've been watching so far, but I'm using those scribble lines a little bit to guide where I want to put the paint. So I'm not necessarily being really constrained by them, but I'm using them in some areas to define the shapes that I'm painting. And for me, I find that really helpful and I like doing it. Not that I necessarily planned to, but I liked doing it in this painting. And I've done some other art in the last year or two like that. And sometimes I like that because I don't have to like think of what to do or think of what shape to make. I can just take my cues off what's already on the paper. And that's largely what I've done for this entire painting process. Now I'm going to talk about materials for a moment because I think that matters. I'm definitely not using like cheap copy paper or something like that. I'm using 100% cotton watercolor paper. This is a half sheet of Fabriano Artistico. Now I think I got it on sale for maybe like $5 or $6 for a full sheet. So say this is about $3 worth of paper. and I've taped it off into 6 sections. The paints I'm using, the ones on the right in the pans, are Roman Szmal paints. And I chose those individual paints and put them in that palette myself because they were colors that I was super curious about. And a lot of them are granulating pigments, which I really like. This is the first time I've painted with them. And so that's what those are. And then the ones on the left in the little dishes are Da Vinci watercolor paints. Now, neither of those brands are as expensive as some of the high-end watercolor paints like the Daniel Smiths or Winsor & Newton Professionals or Senalia, just, to name a few. But these are professional quality paints. I used to have a really hard time making myself use nice things. Not just in art, but maybe in general. I don't know. When am I going to wear the good clothes or use the good dishes or make a really nice meal as opposed to a good enough meal? I don't know. But back to art supplies. When I first started making art again a couple of years ago, I felt, I don't know, stingy. I felt like I was wasting things. I felt like maybe I didn't deserve yet or wasn't good enough to use professional supplies, and that good supplies are only really meant for real, like, quote unquote artists. I would have to sell my work, and I just felt like there was all this pressure that came with using good art supplies. And what have I learned? Well, first, if this is like $3 worth of paper, well, that's far cheaper than a glass of wine. And this whole painting process that I filmed here took about half an hour, so it lasted longer than a glass of wine. And I would argue that I felt better finishing this than I would have doing other things, like my example of drinking a glass of wine. And so, am I not worth that? Like, yeah, I think I'm worth that. I can spend a few dollars worth of art supplies on myself and not have to think about trying to sell it or put something on the wall. Like, I'll easily spend more than that uh, anywhere. So, I don't know. I bring that up just in case any of you are struggling with, well, I don't know if I'm ready for professional art supplies. Try some. Or just paint smaller. Or you know what? Paint with what you've got, because it literally doesn't matter. As long as you're having fun and learning something, and I don't know, that you feel good and you're having fun, that's all that really matters. So use what you got or try something new, whatever floats your boat. Pouring that paint on this piece of paper just now did feel so daring, and I have this huge smile on my face watching it back in the video. It just felt like a bold move for me, and I don't know, maybe it doesn't seem bold to other people, but doing bold things maybe isn't super normal for me. I'm normally not someone who likes a lot of attention necessarily, and so it feels fun to do things like that. One thing I really love about watercolor, and I have a lot of art materials, but I'm kind of hyper focused lately on watercolor, is that they can really have a mind of their own. So you can work really hard and control them to a degree. It's really hard, but you can. But I feel like the opposite of that is letting watercolors do what they're good at and relinquishing control. So that's what I've really tried to do here in this painting exercise, is pick some colors and let them move around and see what they do. I'm putting them on weak, like diluted with a lot of water, and then I'm dabbing stronger, like less watered down bits of paint in there for darker and more saturated colors. I'm letting them blend into each other, and I really like not trying to control them, because you just get such interesting effects that, at least to my knowledge, you can't really do with any other medium. And so it's like the more you let go of controlling them, the bigger surprises you have. And in my opinion, the more raw beauty comes out of them. That's what I love about watercolors. It's not often on a day-to-day basis that I will be pleasantly surprised by something, but it's like if I can let go of control with watercolors, I will be genuinely surprised at what happens, and I love that. Now, speaking of not being in control, in the spirit of making this art and just giving myself that mental exercise of letting go, I will say I'm actually really proud of myself now that I'm watching back the video and doing this voiceover for you, because one thing I've consistently noticed in all the different stages of this is I've been holding, like, whether it's the fountain pen right now or the paintbrush earlier in the painting, I'm holding them by the end of the handle. So you can kind of see, instead of holding it like I'm writing, by holding it at the end, it's another way just to loosen up and have less control of the tool that you're using. That used to feel super weird to me when I first started painting again a couple of years ago. I very much held my paintbrushes like I hold a pen when I'm writing. And it was insanely hard to just let go and do things like this. And I mean, I'm still learning and practicing and getting better, but try that if you haven't tried it before, with your pen or your pencil, your crayon or your paintbrush. Hold them at the end and just move them around and see what kind of marks you get. Well, I've been talking for a while, and now you're seeing what these paintings look like now that I'm ripping the tape off. So some say this is the most satisfying piece of making art, is peeling the tape off. It is extremely satisfying. It's like peeling dried glue off your fingers, if that was ever your thing. Like, hopefully it was. Hopefully I'm not just a weirdo. I used to love doing that when I was a kid, and I still do. But, yeah, peeling tape off the paper. I love this because for the first time it lets me see what these little paintings can be. It's like having little frames. And so I just use a steel ruler, like what you can see here, to then rip these as nicely as I can, I guess. I could cut them, but this feels faster. To rip them into their individual squares so that I can look at them as paintings for the first time. Now, a really helpful exercise that I highly recommend when you paint or draw anything is to step back and see what you like about it. Like, even if you don't like how it looks right now, well, one, don't pass too much judgment, because you might look at it in a week's time and think, oh, that's actually not so bad, and I kind of like this. What do I like about these for myself? Just to kind of show you how I do these thought exercises. I really like the line work. That was really fun. It was fun to do. I like the look of it. I'm glad I went back in with the pen as well, and especially while the paint was still wet, so the ink ran through it and I got those darker lines. I like the way the colors look together, and I'm glad I chose a mixture of some light colors and some medium ones that were a little bright and some darker ones too. I think most of all, I do like that I've left some white space in each of the squares. And I point that out because that's definitely something that I've struggled with maybe the whole time since I started painting again a couple of years ago. I tend to overdo things and not know when to stop. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like this, do let me know in the comments. I love hearing from you and hearing about what you're interested in specifically or what really resonated with you. So drop me a note. And until next time, happy painting.